The Lawrence family's long wait for justice. Two men are found guilty of murdering their son, Stephen.
When two of the killers of Stephen Lawrence were convicted, Driscoll was fated as the detective who finally brought them to justice. Baroness Doreen Lawrence describes Clive Driscoll as an officer with integrity. Driscoll says that he subsequently handed over his notebooks and documents to Gargini. He says they detailed the progress he was making with names of people to contact. And it was around the time that Driscoll was removed that Gargini was asked to run a new inquiry called Operation Middleton. It was on a bigger scale, and as well as police, now involved a team of specially trained social workers. They were known as the Child Abuse in Lambeth team, or Chili for short. But Operation Middleton didn't pick up where Driscoll had left off. John Carroll was no longer the sole focus of the inquiry. Instead, detectives were tasked with looking at allegations of child abuse across all Lambeth children's homes, going back 20 years. So what happened to Driscoll's documents, his leads, his notebooks? That is one of the key unanswered questions. Why? Because Teresa Johnson told us she didn't hear from detectives again. This left her feeling distrustful of the police. Social workers did contact her some years later as part of a general sweep of all former staff. But she told us they never asked her about the information she had given Clive Driscoll. During the course of our investigation, Newsnight met with her around a dozen times. She died in September last year. The charity worker from the caravan park wasn't spoken to either. He too lost faith in the police. The Southwark official who took the adoption call was never contacted either. Some officers in Operation Middleton have told us they were unaware of the information Driscoll had compiled, information that had justified Driscoll's plan to approach the minister. One contests that Driscoll even told them, a claim that Driscoll emphatically denies. But we can reveal there was another strand of information that was presented to the police. Social workers from the Chile team discovered a document which suggested that Paul Boateng and his wife Janet had visited the Angel Road care home in the mid-1980s when John Carroll was still in charge. We've been told the information was passed to detectives on Operation Middleton. Social workers recognised the potential sensitivities. They were told it was discussed at the highest levels of the police and the Home Office. We put this to Mr. Gargini. He told us he was unable to clarify the sequence of events because I do not have access to documents or computer records in relation to Operation Middleton. He said that because there is an ongoing Met inquiry, it would be inappropriate for me to comment further. None of this suggests Paul Boateng has done anything wrong, and the police say they have never received any complaints about him. But might he have had information that could have helped the police investigation? Driscoll thought so, regardless of the sensitivities. The new inquiry did not. Met officers we have spoken to deny they bottled it and describe Middleton as a gold standard inquiry. So, why is this important? In Operation Middleton's early days, officers let it be known they had 40 offenders in their sights. It emerged 16 alleged abusers had died. Another 19 couldn't be identified. At the end of the 4-year inquiry, the police secured 3 convictions. Operation Middleton's final report noted, it would be unreasonable to judge the success of the operation solely on the basis of the number of successful prosecutions. So, where are we now? As we've made clear, there is no evidence that Lord Boateng did anything wrong. He has told us he only became aware of Carroll when Carroll was arrested in the late 1990s. In a statement, he told Newsnight,
"As a campaigning youth justice lawyer in the 1970s and 80s, I acted for many young people in care, met many of their social workers and visited many youth facilities in the course of my work. I did not know Mr. Carroll personally and have no recollection of meeting him professionally or of visiting the Angel Road Children's Home or anywhere else where he was present."
He has told us he remembered the ACYC charity, but has no recollection of visiting during the caravan holidays. And he has said he didn't make the call to a Southwark official. His statement added,
Naturally, I would be appalled if Mr. Carroll was not properly investigated and children were harmed as a result. I am unaware as to how the investigation into Mr. Carroll was conducted, and I knew nothing at all about the matters under investigation. I therefore cannot comment on why the police did not seek my assistance in connection with this matter. I would of course have been happy to assist.
Scotland Yard launched its own internal review nearly 3 years ago. It's now being overseen by the Independent Police Complaints Commission. Now Justice Goddard has made Lambeth a priority. The questions they are looking at go to the heart of policing. Officers take an oath to act without fear or favour. Did they do that in this case? To try to help answer this question, Goddard has turned to this man. Raymond Stevenson was a boy in one of Lambeth's care homes. 18 months ago, he set up a support group for survivors. It is now more than 600 strong. You don't know what they done to me. Messing up my mind. I wish they could have seen it. Pressure all the time. If only they believed me. A music producer, he directed a video to highlight the issue of child abuse in Lambeth. He believes police avoided asking awkward questions. We have 4 pieces of information that appear to show a link, an alleged link between Paul Boateng and John Carroll. Do you think that he should have been spoken to by the police?
I know the 4 links you're talking about, and of course he should have been spoken to. Anyone with those connecting pieces of information should be spoken to, whoever they are.
Carroll now lives in the Midlands. He declined to speak to us. Here he is, with children in his care. Pictures never seen before. By turns he was charming, terrifying, manipulative. Newsnight has heard many conflicting stories about Carroll's world and who was in it. But most people can agree one thing. The story of child abuse in Lambeth and the story of John Carroll has never been fully told.
Nick Hopkins there. Well, Jake Morris carried out that investigation with Nick, and I spoke to him a little earlier. Jake, we've seen one police investigation accused of being far too credulous. In this case, the suggestion is that investigation hasn't been thorough enough. Why do you think the police have such a checkered record in these kinds of investigations?
Well, Evan, I think many police officers would say they're damned if they do and they're damned if they don't when it comes to these kind of inquiries. Now, there are lots of campaigners who believe that the police repeatedly failed to do their job in the 1970s and 1980s when dealing with these allegations. But there are some critics of the police who actually feel that the pendulum has swung too far the other way and that officers are now being overzealous in the way that they look at these things. As you've been saying, this is desperately difficult territory for the police. Why? Because many of these allegations are about events that allegedly happened a long time ago, 30 years ago. It's very hard to investigate. And also because of the incendiary nature of what is being suggested.
Now, given that you and Nick, in the report, spell out very clearly that there's no evidence that Paul Boateng, Lord Boateng, did anything wrong, why did you feel it was important to name him in the report?
We thought very long and hard about this, and we felt that to fully understand this story, to understand the sensitivities around this particular minister, the viewer needed to know what job he did, and therefore who he was. Paul Boateng wasn't just any minister, he was in a particularly sensitive role as the minister in charge of the police, and he was also a man who had made his name as a lawyer who was often very critical of the Met.
So, Jake, what is the process now? What happens now?
Well, Justice Goddard has said, as we said, that she will start looking at Lambeth this month, and she's outlined what she's going to be looking at, and I quote, allegations that there was inappropriate interference in law enforcement investigations into the sexual abuse of children in the care of the council. Now, as we've been saying, the police themselves have been looking at this for nearly 3 years. But there are a number of witnesses we've spoken to who have lost faith in this review, who do not feel that it will get to the bottom of what happened in Lambeth. And I think it's fair to say that Justice Goddard will have her work cut out to reassure them that on this occasion she really will get to the bottom of events in Lambeth.
Jake, thanks.